Isuman. CAC Nyame. But these are the reasons why the petitioner wants Madam Jean Mensa, Bossman Asare, the other deputies and a director removed. We'll put that on the screen for you shortly. And then I get a single comment from each of you before we go. Breach of human rights in relation to SAL, abuse of discretionary power, bias, among many others as well. And the petition in itself, you go to 3news.com, you get it in its entirety, and then get to do a lot of perusal of the story we've done. 3news.com, make sure you're there. And Wanda Madilo, necessary or not necessary? We're continuing on the precedents because it was set in the case of Madam Charlotte Say. Is that the case?
Very difficult position you want to put me in.
I don't want to put you in a position. The gentleman is raising among others.
I'm careful what I say because.
No, you don't have to be careful. I'm saying, and then I'll ask the question. Perhaps you didn't understand my question.
Okay.
Even the NDC, they've had considerable concerns about how Madam Jean Mensa, relatedly other deputies and directors of the commission, have undertaken their work, whether it's from the time they were in office, the procurement issues about why we need to have a new system in place, the registration prior to 2020, the organization of the by-election in Ayawaso West Wogon, which resulted in that violence and the maiming of people. Yeah. Considerably also other by-elections that have been organized, pronouncements by Madam Jean Mensa, and from the last elections as well. Indeed, even currently, we still have a number or two constituencies not even resolved. Even the final collated result of the presidential election, we still don't know in many instances. I can make those considered views.
Yeah, so is the reason I'm a bit careful. Why am I careful?
Because you're not the petitioner?
Yeah, because I'm
Wanda Madilo?
No, I'm not a petitioner. However, I do concede that almost all the things that were listed in their petition is true. I mean, the question of SAR, we've been saddened by their decision not to go ahead, even when the Supreme Court had made pronouncements in that respect. For 4 years on the bounce, the Electoral Commission made no effort in going to SAR to salvage the situation. And I think that is a huge constitutional blunder that will be investigated and appropriate sanctions meted out. On the issue of violence of our elections, yes, we do consider there's still considerable violence because of the posturing of members of the Electoral Commission, including Jean Mensa herself. We have seen some commentary in our direction as a party that we were a risk or a danger to Ghana's democracy or whatever, if you want to recall it. But in the gamut of all these issues is the fact that there would be some level of investigation to establish some prima facie basis for which she has to be removed. And so indeed, if she has to be removed based on findings of a committee appropriately so put together, why not? I mean, our laws have to work, and they have to work irrespective of whose us is God. And so I do not have a problem with that. Why I said you were putting me in a difficult situation was that we are not yet privy to the details that will be unearthed by the committee to investigate the matter, and what the decisions will be, we cannot preempt at the moment. But indeed, many of the things that were listed in the petition are valid points, and we are all witnesses to all these valid points. The issue about Ayawaso West Wogon violence, I think largely was dealt with the Commission of Inquiry, whose report has not been implemented by the outgone president. How the current president would deal with that, I think that he has very capable hands in that respect. The Attorney General's Department will advise properly and will bring closure to this issue. If you observe, the President of the Republic, His Excellency John Mahama, has just charged the IGP to investigate or to bring to bear findings around all election-related violence that we've experienced over the period. So, indeed, we are expecting that to happen.
Nana Sapong, there are processes, of course. The president to make those considerations before it is before.
Roland, you know my standpoint on this.
I don't know your standpoint.
I
What's your standpoint?
After the elections, I made it clear. I said that the three of them do not have the moral right to be seated there. If I were them, I would honorably resign. Okay, now I have had the opportunity to be attending those times when we were. That was last year, because my boss was contesting as an independent candidate. I had a working relationship as part of the 13 presidential candidates, and I think that from where I sit and from the understanding I got from how they work, I do not think that they should be there. And so my stance have always been very clear, and they are not the only people who should not be there. I think I made it very clear that, I mean, if the president was going to trigger and shake up certain persons also from our judicial system, it's also going to help us a lot to moving forward. So my stand, these are my personal stands. I mean, these are not stands of the movement for change. This is my personal opinion and my stance. So I've been very clear on that. But Roland, in moving forward, I mean, this is very clear. So the president should trigger it. I would want to wish Joe Beduansa, Honorable Joe Beduansa, a happy birthday. A former MP for Kwesimintim and former trade minister, has been a very kind father to most of us. And these are some of the individuals who should have been holding my former party, but unfortunately they were all sidelined, and so I wish him all the best. I don't know if he's in town, but if he is, it means that today I would have to see him. And Roland, there was another topic that had to do with the privatization of the ECG. I know that time is up, and
the time is
have
up
to move on.
But you wanted
in
to,
whichever framework that they are coming up with, Roland, I know that the challenges ECG has faced has to do with financial losses, has to do with operational inefficiencies, it has to do with infrastructural deficiencies. But whichever framework that they are coming up with, I personally am in for some aspect of the privatization. And these framework or whatever they are coming up with should avoid or try to avoid job losses. It should try to avoid dependency on foreigners, and it should also try to avoid that absolute takeover by the private sector, at least for the purposes or the reasons of national security. These three items, they should be able to avoid it, and I think that when we are able to avoid all of these, we would have a very good framework to present to Ghanaians. I mean, ECG is in debt. Everybody knows. ECG needs capital injection. Everybody knows. ECG needs infrastructural increase. Everybody knows. ECG needs the human resource development to be able to push in. And I think that if we are looking at it from those angles, we should be able to, the committee should come up with a very good framework for Ghana.